Canon has gotten a lot of flack over the past couple years for their DSLR video quality being subpar. And a lot of people have mentioned this. I talked about it in a blog post years ago, and I recently made a video kind of as a final just explanation for the people who still aren't believers. And this video I called the 5DmkIII is not a 1080p camera. And I thought the footage was proof of that. But a lot of people thought otherwise, which was a little bit shocking. I thought this was kind of common knowledge, and I was just putting together a video to kind of prove once and for all that this was in fact the case, that the 5DmkIII is not 1080p, but there are many people who disagree. And so I have to make another video with even more proof, which is not what I wanted to do, but I felt like I had to for the people who still are unbelievers. They just, for whatever reason, whether they're Canon fanboys or maybe they're just internet trolls, for whatever reason, they want to think that the 5DmkIII is a 1080p camera. I got comments like this one. It's so stupid, this comparison. Resolution is one thing, compression is another thing. Well, that is true. Resolution and compression are separate. However, compression factors into resolution, so it needs to be taken into account. Another comment. If the image is soft, it doesn't mean it's not 1080p. Well, that might also be true. There could be factors such as lens quality affecting the softness of the image, but I don't think that's what was at play here. And then we have this one. What's the point of this video? Gee, did anyone really think that a 5DmkIII versus GH4 downsized from 4K win in resolution? This is the most stupid video I've seen in a year. Well, the point was to scale the 4K down to 1080, so we're comparing the 5D at 1080 to the GH4 at 1080, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Then we have this one. Shooting a video in 4K and rendering out at 1080 doesn't do justice when comparing to a 1080 camera. It's a pathetic comparison, pointless video. Well, the point was to compare true 1080, or close to true 1080, to another camera that was claiming it was 1080, but proving that it wasn't. It had nothing to do with 4K at all. The video was finalized in 1080. It was edited on a 1080 sequence. But hey, maybe I'm just totally wrong here, and I did something really wrong by comparing it to the GH4. So for this test, I'm going to fix my error and only compare the 5D to itself. This was a really good one. So because there's a camera that looks sharper than another camera, it is not 1080p. I think a Burger King cheeseburger is better than a McDonald's cheeseburger. So McDonald's cheeseburgers are not cheeseburgers. Logic, bro. A cheeseburger is a cheeseburger. Doesn't matter if it's microwaved or flame broiled. Well, I'm not sure about the whole cheeseburger analogy. If you're saying that 1080p is 1080p no matter what it looks like, I can't agree with that. And finally, my favorite one, which sparked me to make this video. Where are the scopes to probe the lines that are not there? Also, even the GH3 looks sharper than the 5DmkIII, but the Mark III has an anti-aliasing filter to make things softer, which everyone was trying to get rid of. For the old M2 did not, and the sharpness was too much to bear. If you compare the raw stuff coming from the 5D sensor, then you will see very little difference. The GH3 and 4 are very sharp cameras, so much so you need to dial it down. Sorry, but this test is inconclusive at best. Well, Vladbox, I'm here to make you happy, so I have shot some test charts so you can look at all the resolution that's not there, and it doesn't have to do with the anti-aliasing filter because I have also compared the Mark III video to Mark III photos using the exact same sensor and the exact same setup with the exact same lens. So let's get to that. First, here you can see the 5DmkIII video, the internal video, stock, standard, there's no hack, nothing going on, with the sharpening turned down to 0, as low as it can go, which is the recommended setting by most people. And this might look good, but once we start comparing it to some of the other examples, you'll see how lacking it truly is. For variety's sake, I also shot the same chart, the exact same settings, everything the exact same with sharpening at +1, just to see the difference from 0. And then for good measure, I also did sharpening at +2, just in case anyone had any doubt that I was being unfair to the 5D and turning the sharpness all the way down and not giving it its fair shake. So there's sharpening at +2. And just to go to the extreme, I turned sharpening all the way up to +7, the highest it can go on the Mark III. And this looks just awful. You should never, ever, ever shoot this way, but there it is for you to take in. So the question becomes, what makes 1080 1080? Well, it's effectively a pixel dimension, 1920 pixels wide by 1080 pixels tall. Those are the pixels that you have to fit your detail into. Even if you have 4K, 8K, 16K worth of resolution, once you scale it down, you only have 1920 pixels wide and 1080 pixels tall. So when you take a high-res photo from the 5D Mark III and scale it down to 1080p, that is what 1080p should look like under optimal settings, because you are oversampling by so much and you're scaling it down to 1080p. You can't see any of that extra resolution. You're not seeing the full 20 megapixels because you're scaling it down. You're essentially compressing all that detail into 1920 by 1080. So that's what this photo is. This is a photo from the 5D Mark III scaled down to 1080p. You're viewing it on YouTube, hopefully in 1080p, and when you compare this to what the 5D Mark III actually shoots in video mode, there is a clear and drastic difference between what 1080p should look like and what the video quality on the 5D Mark III actually looks like. A lot of people also said I should throw Magic Lantern into the mix, the RAW hack specifically. Now, I don't use Magic Lantern RAW for a lot of the work that I do. I do use it occasionally, but I find it too cumbersome in post-production, and the file sizes are just too large for most of the work I'm doing. If you're doing interviews or concerts or weddings or anything long format, you are going to eat through hard drives if you're shooting RAW. And the problem with RAW is that it's so good, you never want to delete those original files. So you have to keep them. You have to keep the enormous file sizes unless you're being, a dangerous editor, I guess, and deleting them. But if it were me, I always keep my RAW stuff. So if I'm shooting Magic Lantern, I have to keep those. And then I have to convert to Cinema DNG or something that I can actually edit. And then from there, I have to convert to ProRes or something else that I'm actually going to edit on my timeline. I use the Cinema DNG for the color grading, the initial color grading up front, but then I convert it to ProRes for actual editing, because editing Cinema DNG is a little bit taxing on your system, and I don't have a fully spec'd out system, so ProRes is where it's at. That's a problem for me, so that's why I don't use Magic Lantern RAW. However, I shot some Magic Lantern RAW video just for you people who wanted me to, and it does look significantly better than the internal video from the 5D Mark III. Obviously, it should. This is common knowledge. Most people know this. So if you're shooting with a 5D Mark III, you definitely want to use Magic Lantern when appropriate, because it will give you better results than the standard stock video mode on the 5D Mark III. Now, that's not to say that the Magic Lantern RAW hack is perfect 1080, because as you can see, there are some slight differences between the RAW hack video files and the photo scaled down to 1080. It's a minor difference, but it is there. So if you're shooting with the 5D Mark III and you like the way it looks, that's totally fine. Just don't think that it's actually 1080p. It could look a lot better by using Magic Lantern or even shooting with a different camera. Now here's the part where you can turn the video off if you're satisfied. If you've got the proof and you're happy, move on, have a great day, go shoot some stuff. But there were some other people who complained that I compared the 5D to the GH4 and 4K and said that that was unfair. It wasn't fair to compare 1080 to 4K. Well, that's not true, and I'm going to do it again. The GH4 4K, I've scaled down here to 1080, so we're only dealing with 1920 by 1080. There's nothing 4K about this. I've scaled it down. So essentially all that extra detail is compressed or thrown out. You're not seeing it. You can't see it. It's only 1080. You can't see the extra detail because it's been compressed. But here is, just for your viewing pleasure, the GH4 4K scaled down to 1080 with sharpening at -1. And it's actually pretty close to the photo scaled down. And that's where you can kind of see you're reaching that limit on what detail 1080p can hold. There is an upper limit. It doesn't matter how much resolution you have. If you're scaling it down to 1920 by 1080, you're only going to fit so much detail in there. And we're kind of seeing that here. The high megapixel resolution photo from the 5D compared to the 4K video files from the GH4 at sharpening at -1. And then for some other people who like to shoot at -5, I also shot this chart with sharpening turned down to -5 with the GH4. And you can see there, again, there's not much of a difference between the 5D photo and the GH4 4K. The photo is a little bit better, but again, it's similar to the Magic Lantern RAW hack where those minor details is really not going to be noticed by your average viewer, who someone just watching it isn't going to pick up that, oh, it's a little bit sharper, it's a little bit crisper. You're kind of at that point where you're maxing 1080p out and you're getting as much detail as you can into the image. So hopefully this video was more proof, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe I was totally wrong. Tell me, let me know, because I'll gladly make a part 3 if there's something that I totally screwed up in this test. But I don't think so. I think it's pretty clear that the 5D Mark III regular video mode is not 1080p.